everyone, and welcome back to Life as a Canadian Immigrant. Today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Kristina from As Told by Canadian Immigrant. Kristina has a lot of experience with Canadian immigration, and she's here today to share experiences and give us some insights. It's great to have you here with us today, Kristina.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Kristina is a businesswoman and a fellow YouTuber and author. She has two books out: the How to Move to Canada and Become a Canadian Citizen Here, and Shadow Work. Okay, so let's dive right in. To start, could you tell us a little about yourself and where you're originally from and what motivated you to move to Canada?
Hi, everyone. Thank you again for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be on your channel as well. I'm Kristina, as she said. I'm from Jamaica, born and grown. I went to university in Jamaica. I studied architecture, and I think from a little girl, I always wanted to move to foreign. I did like America. I remember visiting America for the first time. First of all, I couldn't get a US visa until I was about 10 or 11. Every time we applied, we got rejected. So then it seemed even more, university is just like if you want even more. so when we finally get approved and we go, it's nice, it's pretty, the road clean, you can walk outside barefoot and not cut up your foot. And I was just, I just really liked foreign and America. And I went through architecture school. I didn't feel very hopeful in my prospects for a good job in Jamaica or my financial mobility. And so coming out of university, somebody mentioned like, oh, Canada. I thought I couldn't afford it. And we said, let's just see. So we went and sat with an immigration consultant. The consultant kind of laid out a map and said, more school, more school. Based on my profile, school was what made sense for my immigration route. Okay. And I thought that I wouldn't be able to afford it. And it turns out that, we were able to afford a few loans and such. And, I went to Canada with the hopes of, having a better financial future, to adult a little bit more easily. And that was what prompted my Canadian immigration journey.
Okay, so you came to attend school. Would you mind telling us which school you attended?
I didn't come to attend school. Let me just clear that up. I attended school to come.
Oh, okay. Thanks for the clearing up.
So I just finished university, right? I wasn't really trying to go back to school, and I have a bachelor's in architecture. But school was what made sense, and I was okay with doing a postgraduate program. So I ended up doing a postgraduate program in project management at Humber College, and it was a 1-year program. So, but it was like consecutive semesters. So straight, there's no summer break or anything like that. It's just straight from January to August, 1 year, and you finish, and then you go off into the work world with a 1-year work permit and hope for the best.
Okay. So, can you tell us some of the challenges you faced in the immigration process? Did you have any problems when you were doing your application? How did that go?
Well, when I had just come, there was no express entry. So, we got some advice from an immigration consultant to come here, saying, okay, help us to get into school, help us to get to Canada, but we really didn't know what the plan was after school, apart from the fact that we're going to get a work permit. We didn't really know what the path to permanent residency was supposed to be, especially given that there was no express entry. So I found that when we were in school, there was one other Jamaican with me in the class, and we both had consulted with the same person in Jamaica.
Okay.
And we both felt clueless. And we were in this 8-month program where we're like, oh shoot, 8 months is not a year. What's the length of the work permit we're going to get, all of that. And we found that we had more questions than answers. And we really had to rely on each other as, misery loves company. And I tried LMIA, which started out okay. And then it stopped at a point where LMIA is very intimate in your business and intimate in the company's business. So once it got intimate, it kind of had to stop there. I tried provincial nominee, but based on the timeline for provincial nominee, it wasn't going to work out. And then thankfully, express entry opened up the following year. But because it was new, I didn't really know. I didn't ask for any necessary professional advice because I felt like nobody really knew. And if anybody was telling me, they were going to be guessing anyway.
Yeah, it was new. So
I just did my research. I researched the heck out of it and just got my ducks in a row. When I submitted my first express entry profile, it said ineligible. Oh, speaking about challenges, my very first student visa was rejected.
Oh yeah,
right out the gate. Right? Canada did say no, miss. We'll come again. So yeah, my first visa was rejected.
What was the reason behind that?
I didn't have my police certificate. Oh. I was looking at the general checklist, not the Jamaican specific checklist. By the way, check your country specific checklist. Okay.
Yes.
Jamaicans need a police certificate. I didn't have the police certificate, so they said missing documents, police certificate. Once I got rejected, I immediately just went to an immigration consultant and was like,
oh, so you had tried it on your own?
I did it on my own. He got me into school and I was like, thanks, I could take it from here. And then I was wrong. So yeah. So
you heard that, guys. You have to check your country specific requirements when you're doing the application.
Yep.
Yeah. So what was one of the biggest adjustments that you had to make when settling in Canada? When you just came, what you had to adjust to?
The freaking, can I say that word? Sorry, you can probably cut that out. The weather of it, like the weather, because I came having never experienced winter ever. I came in Jamaica in January, from Jamaica in January, right? Of course, in the morning, I was in jeans pants and just a normal shirt. And by the next morning, I literally had to be wearing layers of clothes. And because of how my rejected visa at the beginning, everything was a tight timeline for me. So I actually got my visa, my passport, landed in Canada, and attended school all within 24 hours. Because I was late for school. I got my visa and passport the same day as my plane ticket. And so landing here, I landed at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I had to sleep and then wake up at 6 o'clock and then made my trek to Humber. And it was cold. It's a cold like nobody can explain to you how cold it is. You just have to experience it.
Yeah, January is peak winter, so really, really cold.
Yeah, so that was the biggest thing for me. And having to take the bus makes it that much more something that you experience firsthand for longer than you'd like to. Yes. Because you're outside in the busway, call it, the bus stop, waiting.
Oh my, yes, I do remember those experiences. Sometimes I felt like my fingers, my toes, they were just going to fall off. It was crazy. But you get used to it, right?
You get used to it, and I find that when you come as an immigrant, you know there's a hustle. So things don't really bother you as much. So it didn't really bother me that it was so cold. It was just an adjustment. Now that I am not in the hustle state anymore, I don't really have much capacity for the cold.
Yeah.
Somebody saw me in the elevator today. They're like, "Is it really cold outside?" I'm like, "No, I'm just not from here."
I mean, you are really from here. It's been a while.
I know, but I'm just like, I feel like I haven't really adjusted. I'm not ready for the winter right now. I'm not. It's dark and it's cold too early. So yeah.
How did you adjust? Did you come with family or come to family? How was that for you?
I came by myself, but I came to family. Okay. So that was a very helpful experience because then somebody picks me up at the airport. My cousin came with me to school on the first day of school because I needed to know the bus route and all of that before we get lost. So my cousin accompanied me to school, showed me around. I don't know if she was familiar with the campus, but she was able to help me navigate. And so I stayed with them for the entire time. I went to school, which was extremely helpful.
That is good.
Yeah, because sometimes my classes ended at 9 o'clock in the night in the winter. So my auntie would have, and then the bus only stopped like way over there. So my auntie would come and pick me up, and it was super, super, super grateful for that.
Yeah, but if you don't have family here, though, don't be discouraged. There are ways. A lot of people do it.
People do it
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah,
all the time.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's just a first world problem, really.
Yeah. Let's talk about employment. How challenging was it to get a job while you were going to school and after you finished school?
So the rules were a little bit different when I came. You couldn't get a job when you just came, you had to wait, I think 3 months. Is that a 3 or 6 months? I think up to June. You had to wait 6 months before you could work. And if you wanted to work before 6 months, you could work on campus. But if you wanted to work off campus, you had to wait. And based on my workload with project management, I honestly wasn't trying to work. And not just so there's one, the schedule and the workload, but two, I lived 2 hours away from school.
Oh,
a
wow,
lot of my
that's
time
a lot of
was spent commuting.
transportation, yeah.
Yes. So like if I was going to work, it was going to be on the weekends when I had to do my assignments or whatever. So I really didn't try to work while I was in school. I tried it during my last month of school because I only had one course. And I just worked at a local Starbucks and the supermarket while I was looking for jobs in my field when September came.
Oh, so that was the last semester of school you did?
The last month.
Last month. Okay.
So like I just really worked there for 2 weeks. I did tell them when I was I said, listen, I'm looking for jobs in my field. I live locally though, and I'm okay with doing some stuff here. In the meanwhile, just so you know, if I get a job, I'm a bounce.
Okay.
And bounce, I did. But I told
so
them.
Getting that first real job, was it a challenge? Or did you know someone? How did that go for you?
In hindsight, it wasn't challenging. But before I actually got the job, I was applying for jobs on Indeed, on Monster.com, everywhere where them say apply for job for.
Yes.
And I wasn't getting any responses. And I started to get worried because I knew that it's crunch time because I only have a 1-year work permit. So I was considering moving to BC. I was considering moving to Alberta because I hear that the job market is easier over there because there's less people, so there's less competition.
Yes.
And then the immigration process may have been easier over there as well. So I was actually applying to jobs over there. I got an interview for a job in BC. Oh. But then
your field?
In my field, so it was an interior design. But my aunt was like, you're going to go where now? Because going to another province is like going to another country again. Yeah. Right? And I don't know anybody, or there's nobody close to come if I'm a damsel in distress. I was fine with it. But then I networked locally as best I could. I had a friend who was working at a company that had something that I could possibly do. And he handed my resume in for me, and that landed me my first job. So as soon as school finished, I walked straight into a job. Okay, yeah. That's amazing. You see the importance of networking. So that's very good. And network long before you need the job. Yeah. So like start networking 2 to 3 months before school is over. Like dig your well before you're thirsty. Good.
Let me delve a little into your social life. When you just came, how did you go about building a social life or community?
I didn't. I came. All right. So the thing is that I think when you come to school, it's easier to have a social circle of the sort because you have classmates, right? Yes. So I came to school. I had my classmates. We made friends. All of that stuff. I would see them every day anyway, and that was my social circle. Once school was done and I had to move out of where I was living to, go to my job and move out on my own, my routine was go to work, go home, go to the supermarket on the website on the weekend and binge watch Netflix. I didn't have a car, so I didn't drive. So it wasn't very convenient for me to move around. And if I didn't see a clear path there and a clear path home, like somebody was gonna pick me up and drop me off, I wasn't going. Also, because I didn't really know about my status, I didn't really want to spend off my money. So I just saved my money, stayed home, watched TV, and then eventually I networked with somebody on LinkedIn. They introduced me to a larger community that taught me a lot about financial literacy and all of that. So that was my little community for a while. Okay. Then I eventually joined a church, who is now my immediate network and support system. Okay. But it took me a couple of years.
So LinkedIn and the church community, if you're religious, and just networking events, that can really work for you.
There's lots of networking events, like easily. You can find networking events on Facebook. You can find on this thing called Eventbrite. Yeah. There's always something going on, more than you can imagine, more than I even know.
Yeah. So you said you had to move out on your own after. Did you have difficulty finding an apartment or a place to rent? What was that like for you when you just
No,
came?
it was actually pretty okay, of course, in hindsight. In it, it's like, oh my god. But
Yeah.
I just searched online for places, and you have to be really careful for the sites that you're searching on. I did find one place that was super cheap looking, and I had messaged the landlord, and they said, oh, we don't live in the country, and we just want somebody to take care of our home for us and the Lord. And they were talking about Jesus and stuff like that. And they were like, just send us the rent and we'll send you the key and you can have our home. Don't fall for that. Okay. So I was like, no, bye. Then I eventually found somewhere that was like about 3 hours away from where I lived by bus. And my aunt accompanied me there, so helpful to our family. And then she did a little bit of negotiating for me. And I was in a place that was nice and clean and newish and all of that stuff. But I did look at some other places that were really like not so nice. So always try and see if you can look at the place before you like sign up for it. Cause
that's definitely a good one. You have to
the
look at the
pictures look
place.
nice.
Yes,
But
pictures and the actual place, they're not usually the same. So always go and look at the place first. Do not send any money to anybody before you look at a place and sign an agreement.
yes.
Yeah. So we spoke about rent, we spoke about building a community. Now to the healthcare system. You've had experience with the healthcare system. You had your beautiful daughter here. Congratulations. How was your experience with the healthcare system?
So in terms of having my Ebony in the middle of the pandemic, which is an extreme interesting experience in and of itself, it felt like a very seamless process to just, I had a midwife versus a OB/GYN, and that all of that is covered by my provincial insurance.
Okay.
So there was no out-of-pocket money to have my baby, to have my appointment, all of that stuff. The staff and everybody was very supportive and helpful, a lot more helpful than because I don't have the capacity to work in the medical field. It's gone full. I found that they were so accommodative, they were so helpful, and I mean, because it was pandemic. 2, because I had a midwives will come to your home and check on you after you have the baby. I had my baby and I was sent home that same night. And then the
same night you gave birth?
Yeah.
Oh, but then the midwife came.
The midwife came to my house afterwards, but that same, I had the baby and they're like, oh, all right, bye. So that was really good. Outside of that though, I mean, there's sometimes there's long wait times when it comes to seeing a specialist. Or if you end up having to go to the hospital. We've had to go to the hospital a couple times to the emergency. And if I've waited for 4 hours before in the emergency. And I don't know that's uncommon anywhere else, but that was my experience here. It was not pleasant.
Yeah.
And
I've had similar experiences. 4 to 5 hours of waiting to be seen. Yeah, it's like that.
And having to wait for a specialist. I remember having to wait for a specialist for Ebony. Wait for 3 months to get the appointment. And then when we got the appointment, they determined that she needed to do minor surgery. And then we had to wait for another 3 months to get the surgery date. So things like that, I don't think that is something that you expect when you think about the healthcare system, the free healthcare system. But I think that's part of it being so available means that there's like a lot of wait time. Or a lot of long lines.
So when they say the healthcare system is free, like certain things are not covered, right? No, glasses, dentist.
No. So what is covered is going to see a doctor and a normal MD.
Yes.
Going to see the doctor and going to the hospital. Outside of that, your medication isn't free. And other specialists are covered on their healthcare if the MD refers you. So you cannot get up and say, I want to go to a dermatologist. The MD has to refer you for it to be covered. Other than that, everything else is either private insurance or you pay for it, medication included. Yeah. And it's not free, right? It's not. It's available.
Yeah.
through taxes.
Oh yes, taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Good topic. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the cost of living in can vary across Canada, right?
Yes.
What are your thoughts on the cost of living when you came here to what it is now? And talk a little about taxes since you mentioned that a little.
Well, when I came, to give you guys a point of reference, rent was $600. It was a basement apartment and it was kind of a small space, but it was a nice, like, put together basement apartment. So it wasn't dingy or nothing like that, but it was $600. And I remember wanting to move out 3 years after I had lived there. And I was seeing places for $900. I'm like, $900? And what I would give for $900 right now, let me tell you, because now it's leaped significantly.
Yes.
And I've done a couple of cost of living videos on my channel where I've toured apartments or houses and all of that stuff. And the cheapest thing that we saw was $1,400, which was our room inside a house.
For one room inside the house?
Shared bathroom.
Shared everything. $1,400?
Shared everything. Shared bathroom, shared kitchen, shared everything. And the rooms that had their own bathroom were $1,700. And everything else is shared.
Wow.
A basement apartment was $2,200. That was a 2-bedroom basement apartment. So, the rent, the cost of living in terms of just your housing and stuff leaped significantly. I don't know that I used to pay attention much to groceries in terms of the cost. I'm sure that has gone up too.
Yes,
but
that has.
I never used to pay attention as much now to say, oh, well, milk used to cost this and now it costs this. I don't remember. But for sure, just the cost. Gas. Oh my God, gas.
Yes.
Before the pandemic, $50 could fill my tank. When I came back after the pandemic, $50 gave me half a tank.
Wow.
Literally.
So 100%.
100%. Yeah. Which I think is a bit much. Just saying.
But I think it's expensive everywhere, though.
I think it's expensive everywhere.
Because in Jamaica, when you're in Jamaica, it's quite costly, right?
Turn up. Especially light bill.
It's expensive
over there in Jamaica. I mean, Jamaica, JPS. Oh no matter about.
Yeah, but don't feel discouraged about the cost. If once you get here, you'll start working Canadian money and it will balance out. So don't feel discouraged about it. The cost of living is high everywhere.
And I don't think it's something to be discouraged about. It's one thing to understand the reality and then to be prepared. I think that's we've been taught a certain way in terms of go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and you work until you retire. And that model in this day and age may not work anymore. In terms of just relying on the income from a job, because your job is not paying you more proportionate to the cost of living, right? So they're not going to say, oh, the cost of living going up next year, let's give you guys a raise. They're not doing that. True. And so I think things like having a second source of income, having a side hustle, having a business or something like that can help to supplement your income. And we spoke, you said, I must talk a little bit about taxes, but having a business can help to reduce your taxable income, right? That's a whole other video in and of itself. But I think that awareness of the cost of living can there help you to prepare and think in other ways than we have been taught to think. So it's not to scare you. I don't think, and I'm hesitant to say this, but I don't think that it's a problem that Canada is expensive. I just think that we're not making enough money. Yeah, as individuals.
I agree with that.
So we just need to make more money.
Yeah, we just have to figure out ways to make more money, right?
Yeah. I'm not trying to sound like snotty or anything, because I'm not rich by any means. I just honestly believe that is the glass half full or is half empty. If we're making X amount of money a month, then the cost of living is not as bad as if we're making $3,000 a month, right? Yeah. And I think employers are a whole different talk. They need to keep up and pay us more money, pay people more money.
That's true.
Don't get scared, but be motivated to hustle.
Yes. So, we spoke earlier about you being an author, right? So I know your book. Tell us a little about the Canadian immigration book that you have.
All right. So that book is called From Foreign Student to Canadian Citizen and Everything in Between. And when I started my channel for months, I had been saying, guys, I'm going to give you something that's a video. I thought it was going to be a video of my entire journey. I'm going to tell you everything step by step. And then every time I thought about it, it was overwhelming because I was like, this is gonna be a long ass video. Like, what the hell? So then, sometime last year, I had moved out of the workplace that I was in, and I had always wanted to be an author or to write a book. And when I thought about what my first book would be, the challenge was, what is something that you can write about without even thinking about it? Oh. And it was this, right? And I had it, like, this is perfect. And so what it is, it's the journey from wherever you are, if you're probably watching this and you're not in Canada, sitting down at home in your couch trying to figure out, okay, I want to go to Canada, I want to go to school in Canada specifically. How do I get there and what are the steps? And so it starts from helping you to identify, where to go to school, and then applying for the study permit, getting to school, going through the whole thing from student all the way to citizen, so that you can understand it from a holistic point of view, step by step, because we didn't know when we came what the full journey was. And that was a problem for us because it caused us unnecessary stress and anxiety.
Unnecessary money spending.
And unnecessary money spending because we made a lot of mistakes along the way. So knowing what the full journey looks like, just yesterday actually, just this morning, I posted a video that is, somebody sent me an email, right, saying that they came to Canada in January of 2022. They finished school in August of 2022. They started working in September of 2022. And so September 2023 would be 1 year working. Okay. Perfect. It's November now, and she hasn't taken her English test, and she hasn't done her credential assessment. So her question to me was, I'm going to get these things done. When I submit my application, am I still able to work until they get approval? I'm like, well, submit what application? Because that's not how it works. You don't just go to school and then work and then you can apply for permanent residency. No, you join a pool and then the government decides if you can apply for permanent residency. Yeah. And just awareness, just knowing that is the path, sets you up for success, to know when to take your educational credential assessment thing, when to take your English exam, and prepare, because now her thing is going to expire in January. She doesn't have enough points. So I put her together with our immigration consultant, because time is of the essence for her. And if she doesn't do the right things right now, she could be out of status. So awareness is what this book is about.
Okay. And it's available on Amazon?
It's available on Amazon as a paperback, or ebook is available on Audible as an audiobook. It's also available on my website as an audiobook and ebook combo for people who don't necessarily like to read but like to have the both of them or whatever. And there's part of my journey in there. I kind of mix it in with me and the technical aspects of how to do it.
Just go ahead and get your copy. Very informative book. And about the other book, tell us a little about shadow work. Tell us a little about this one.
So this one, the name of the book is Uncover Your Authentic Self Through Shadow Work. And it's a book about how to identify your triggers, transcend trauma, develop self-love, and become a better version of ourselves. And I think that it's fair to say that all of us have been through some stuff.
Yes, we have all.
And sometimes life throws us some lemons, and it can create some sort of inner turmoil within ourselves, and that will become inauthentic version of ourselves, like we're putting on a show sometimes, or we don't find that we can be a true version of ourselves anywhere we go. And the whole idea of shadow work is to identify our conscious self and our subconscious self and reconcile the two so that they work in harmony instead of pushing against each other. Because sometimes we suppress our feelings or different things about ourselves, and then we show up in inauthentic ways. So that's part of my lived experience. And so how I came out of it was through a concept called shadow work, which is the work that you do to uncover your shadow. And your shadow is that unconscious side of ourselves that we usually hide, that's kind of misbehaves sometimes, but not necessarily misbehaves. I think it's just wanting attention and wanting care, and that's what shadow work is about.
Yeah, very interesting book. And speaking about mental health, how does living in Canada, the change in the weather, how does that affect your mental health? How did it affect you back then, and does it still affect you now?
I think back then I had a lot more capacity because, like I said, I think the hustle gives you thicker skin. Yeah. And then once you kind of settle, and you are more, I think, present and more conscious. Things get you a little bit easier than they did. And I'm finding this year especially, I think because I spent the last 2 years before now, my Christmases would have been spent in Jamaica.
Okay.
And so I didn't necessarily have to experience a transition in the weather and all that stuff. So I got a break from the winter. And when I came back, it's almost like I had forgotten about it. And so I'm having to readjust. And I'm finding this year, especially, once the trees started to change color, and we feel a little breeze that feel like a little Christmas breeze, my mood changed.
Oh.
And today especially, I found that because the time change, it gets darker earlier.
Yes.
It's a little bit sad. I'm not gonna lie. But I think that's the best thing that you can do for yourself with that is to understand that because the sun shines less during the winter, or you get less exposure to the sun, your vitamin D levels can contribute, or low vitamin D levels can contribute to depression. And it's just, if you just know that, then you can counteract it with supplementing with vitamin D, because that can be a big game changer in terms of your mood, and get outside more. So I'm having to be more conscious and more intentional about it so that you don't fall into a deep slump. But the winter blues is real. It's not something to be afraid of, but the more awareness you have around it, the better you can equip yourself to go through it in a healthy way.
Yeah. So the big question, do you regret migrating to Canada?
Absolutely not. Never.
Never once?
Never
Not even
once.
one time you said to yourself, oh,
yes. There's been times where I ask myself, like, what the hell? Like, this is unnatural, this weather. There have been times when, especially when my grandfather was sick, and then that was when I had just become a permanent resident, and I talk about this a little bit in my book even. He was sick, and I was questioning, like, should I be here? I'm missing out on my family, I'm missing out on my grandfather. And then he started to lose his memory, so then I quickly flew to Jamaica, and I was there with him for a little bit. I still don't feel like I got to spend enough time. I came back to Canada, and then within a week he died.
Oh.
And I had to grieve alone, which is another thing. It's not about Canada, it's about being an immigrant in general. You're away from your family, you have to grieve alone. So I questioned my decision, but I've never regretted to this day, after 10 years moving. And I don't think that anybody should hear somebody else's story, even if they regret it, and make their decisions based on somebody else's story. Because I think that people will say they regret it, but they don't leave. If you regret it, leave. Unless you see somebody unless you see somebody that regrets it leaves, and then they go wherever they wanted to go and have a successful life, then you can listen to them. Otherwise, when you're on your deathbed, you having to think about, like, oh, I should have gone to Canada, I shouldn't have listened to so and so. Like, you're gonna have to live your own life and make your own choices. Yes, you can make informed decisions based on other people's experiences, but don't ever let somebody else discourage you from coming to Canada because of their experience. Because some people come here with different expectations, they come here with different support systems, different anything that could make or break their experience here. So I don't regret it one bit. I would never tell anybody not to move to Canada. And I think that it's easy to romanticize what your life could have been like if you just did this. I remember I said that, oh, when I go to Jamaica, I'm going to go to the beach every day. I was in Jamaica for quite some time, and I went to the beach maybe 3 times.
Yeah.
Because you romanticize what you coulda, shoulda, woulda, and you actually don't. You want it because you don't have it. And then when you have it, it's not that appealing anymore. And I think that's the nature of things in general. So no, 0 regrets, never regret.
Yes.
And I wouldn't tell anybody not to move here at all. The cost of living high, just make it work. Make some more money.
Make it work.
Make some more money.
Before we wrap up, I know you gave so many good advices throughout the interview, but is there anything else that you would want to say to someone who is thinking of immigrating to Canada, or someone who just came to Canada? Any last minute advice you would want to leave with them?
I think I would kind of just summarize some of the key points here, especially given what people may be seeing in the media right now. Depending on when they're watching this, there's lots of videos about people leaving Canada, and I think that there's a difference between people leaving Canada and people going home. when somebody, you see, oh, so and so left Canada. Somebody leaving Canada is leaving Canada because of something in Canada. Somebody going home is going home. They're leaving because of a personal reason, because of the nature of immigration, which has nothing to do with Canada. Like, immigration is immigration wherever you go. And so I want people to take other people's experiences with a grain of salt. Even mine. Mine was positive. Take everything with a grain of salt. Do your own research based on your personal situation, right? So understand what the immigration route is like from start to finish before you even embark on it, so that you can make informed decisions and you don't end up making expensive mistakes or making your experience of Canada one that you can say you will regret, right? The next thing I think is define what success and failure means to you as an individual. Not to, because a lot of people in their especially in third world countries, success is the house that you live in and the car that you drive. And so some people come to Canada and their goal is probably home ownership, which is fine if that's your individual goal. But if it's a goal that was defined based on society or your family or somebody who came before you, then stop and think for a second. Why? What is your why? Why you want to move to Canada? Why do you want the house? Why do you want the car? And make sure it is your definition of success and failure. The last thing I think I would want to leave with people is a bad job in your country is a bad job in Canada. Don't think that Canada is gonna solve your problems if you don't know how to solve your own problems. If you are in a career that you don't necessarily like, just taking it up in Canada isn't necessarily going to make you like it, even if you're making a little bit more money, if it's not something that you like. So I think it's very good to get clear on why you want to come to Canada, what you want to do in Canada, so that your transition here can be positive and not just you're coming here because you think Canada is going to be the answer to your problems, when you are the answer to your problems. Like, moving to Canada has more to do with you than it has to do with Canada. So come prepared. Research, take people's advice with a grain of salt, get professional help if you are not sure about the process, because that can save you a lot of time and money, and it's an investment, right? It can save you money to pay somebody to help you to just get it done. So
it's been a pleasure having you here with us today, Kristina.
Absolutely.
Your story is truly inspiring, and I'm sure it will resonate with many of our viewers. I want to thank you for sharing your story, and we really appreciate it. And to our viewers, if you enjoyed this interview, give a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. We will try our best to answer them in upcoming videos. Kristina, I really appreciate this interview.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you too. Congrats on restarting the channel.
Oh, yes.
It was a pleasure being here as well. Like, guys, dare to dream, make a plan, and then take that leap.
Thank you, guys. Bye.